executive, staff and members of the public. Welcome to this full council meeting, which is a public meeting. It's being live streamed and recorded, and we've got a few items on the agenda today. I'll start with apologies. Councillor Brandt's on approved leave. I believe Councillor Smith will be joining us online. So far we have no apologies. In terms of leave,
do you want an apology for Mr. Peter if he's not online yet? Oh, okay.
Yeah. If there are any requests for leave of absence, it's just pop around the table, Cody, and then we'll come around this way. All good, hanging around. And Matt, no, Melissa.
Yes, can I please put in for September 28th to October 2nd?
Good.
30th of November, 1st, 2nd, and 3rd of December will be online in Christchurch.
John?
Yeah, I'm going to be working at Christchurch next week, so all of next week. And then, but I'll be available for as much as I can online. And so it'll be from the 27th of August through to the 11th of September. The second week I'll be all over the place.
No, but Quentin, there's no link. That's why you can't get on.
Oh, that's true. Yes.
Okay, cool.
Okay, you want to link it? Okay, so we've got those leave of absence. So I'll move that the request for leave of absence be granted. Somebody to second that. Councillor Copeland, all in favour, please say aye. That is carried. Conflict of interest, differential conflict. Is there anything any councillor would like to declare? Okay, so we'll move to the public forum. We've got 5 speakers today. Just we'll see one after this. We have 3 minutes time allocation, and Chris back from here. Yeah, very good. G'day, Chris. Welcome back.
The 24th of October 2024, I came to the council meeting and I read this letter to you. Since I've lived in Queenstown, there have been several vehicles that have crashed through the wooden fence. 1 young woman has died and several have been injured. Property damage at 135 has occurred. In the latest episode, a car crashed through the barrier onto the accessway, writing off 2 cars, bursting into flames adjacent to the steps, preventing an escape from 129. Fortunately, the residents were not upstairs at the time. It careered through and destroyed much of the garden, which was planted by Mr. Calvert when he was alive. QLDC cannot say they are unaware of the problem, as QLD infrastructure in the form of a small concrete building and metal cabinet housing, telemetry and stormwater equipment was smashed, and the whole thing had to be replaced, requiring several $1,000s for repairs and replacements. On a Christmas day, during the day, a car came through the barrier, landing on its roof on the accessway. The accessway must be used to get to the signposted track to the lake. By good fortune, nobody was on the accessway at the time. The accessway and path to the lake were very busy. Some years ago, the QLDC placed a counter on the track which measured over 600 pedestrian movements in one day. That crash took out the power to the neighbouring houses. Cars have gone through the barrier in several places and left hanging over the bank. Somebody should take ownership of this problem, blah, blah, blah. Well, you did nothing. I live at 133 Frankton Road and have lived there since I built our home in the early 90s. Before that, in the early 80s, I built a house on the Commonage. I recognised that a danger existed from traffic coming down York Street on a right-hand curve, so I addressed the problem myself to protect my property. Because I live adjacent to State Highway 6A, I cannot take such measures and must rely on others to do so. Approaches to NZTA were a waste of time. The reception I received was akin to being treated like a bothersome child, and nothing was achieved. So I must turn to you again to resolve this very real danger. Since I spoke to council, another vehicle has failed to take the corner, crashed through some foliage, then hit and wrote off a $70,000 private car then onto the elaborate wall, causing $15,000 to $20,000 worth of damage. Fortunately, that wall was solid enough construction to prevent the house from being smashed into. Traffic volumes are increasing, as are pedestrian traffic numbers, which only increases the danger level. I believe that you, Mr. Mayor, and councillors have a responsibility to protect your community and council infrastructure, and should do so willingly and not ignore ratepayers and members of the community when they approach you for help. You should instruct the CEO to have this matter resolved and not put it in the too hard basket. I do not pay rates to the NZTA. I pay my rates of just on $11,340 per year to you, and I want you to resolve this issue and simply not ignore it as you did before. I know that in Arthur's Point, Amco railings have been placed up the road on a private subdivision, most likely, I would imagine, as a condition of consent. There is a very simple, cost-effective solution, which means just putting an anchor point at each end of the fence with a wire on the back of the fence, as is used on state highways around New Zealand. That would be in addition to the barrier and would stop these vehicles coming over the bank, crashing into houses, causing damage, injuring people. You must do something about it. Please do not ignore me again, because this is not going to go away. I will come back and back and back again if you guys don't sort it out. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Is Florence here or online? Okay.
Can you hear us okay?
Yes, we can. Thank you. We'll over to you for the next 3 minutes. Thank you, Florence.
Kia ora, for Florence Miku Aho. Firstly, thank you so much for standing up to defend the community views and district needs. The government is obviously refusing to pose fast track, yet you, the council, can pose new consents. There are already so many consents granted, jobs and growth for years to come. So I recommend to pose new consents now and plan for a low carbon resilient society that we all want. And as per international agreements, 30% by 2030, that's 3 years away. Protecting trees is a cornerstone of sustainable urban development, and I am requesting again that you pause tree felling, please. So, since I asked in February, at least 7 long windbreaks have been culled from 3 parks to Orchard Road in Wanaka. I share here concern about tree management in Wanaka. First, Ely Point Reserve. In 2020, community consultation concluded that this area be retained and managed. But in 2025, in total contradiction to this, consultants were given a brief for the systematic removal and replacement of conifers. What happened in the council for such a change? 2, the golf course. It's on public land. In 2023, when the club applied to remove 70 trees to build water tanks, even the Upper Clusa Community Board deferred the decision. But this year, 650 trees from a 750-meter windbreak were removed without public consultation. And there was reported bribery. What is the council doing, please? All this logging shows that rules are inadequate, particularly in a climate and biodiversity crisis. Did you know that windbreaks reduce wind speed up to 80%? Very useful in a climate changing. That most mature trees here are non-natives. That mature trees store at least 30 tons of CO2 each. That trees here are 150 years old maximum and can easily live 500 years. I believe these things need to be rediscussed, but not in 3 minutes. I am offering to help you make a law to oppose tree felling until rules adequately protect trees. I organize a public meeting for tree protection to foster both legal and cultural change. It's Saturday, 5th September in the Community Hub in Wanaka, 5 p.m. and you are welcome. Namihi.
Thank you, Florence. Yeah.
Kia ora koutou katoa. The current climate supercharged El Nino is still rising, and it is far from its peak that will happen towards the end of the year. But many parts of the world are already burning at record levels. You must have seen the exceptional droughts and fires in Europe, in the UK, in Canada, in the US, or in Indonesia. Fire risk is going to keep increasing alongside the rising temperatures caused by our use of fossil fuels. And we are not any safer here. You have all seen the Alberton fire in the middle of a wet winter. But it is important to understand that the real death toll from these fires isn't caused by the events themselves, but by the toxic air pollution they cause. The World Meteorological Organization estimates that on average, more than 100,000 people die every year globally from the air pollution caused by wildfires. And it could be a lot more, as recent studies are showing that PM 2.5 from wildfires are particularly toxic. And yet, here in New Zealand, in what is otherwise a modern and rich nation, we still regard burning wood and biomass as a normal way to heat our homes or to manage farmland. We are willingly creating the same kind of pollution wildfires cause every winter within our communities. Since I last spoke about this issue, I did participate in the Air Quality Collective survey of the air pollution in Wanaka. The last 2 weeks on the graph I shared with you, the sensor was attached to my home, recording the outside air quality. And it clearly shows that the air pollution spikes to dangerous levels every morning and every evening when log burners are lit. As I already mentioned in May, this has deadly consequences. 1 out of 5 New Zealanders suffers from a lung disease. This kind of pollution literally puts children in hospital and kills thousands of New Zealanders every year. If this wasn't enough, soot or black carbon is also a powerful greenhouse gas, up to 1,500 times more potent than CO2 at warming the planet. And it also accelerates the melt of snow and ice, which is of particular concern for mountainous areas such as ours, where the hydrology depends on snow levels and on glaciers. But the short lifespan of black carbon is also an opportunity. To stop burning wood and to clean up our air quality can quickly slow down the heating of the planet while saving lives and improving the health of everyone. This is why we are asking you to work with the ORC to make air quality monitoring in Wanaka permanent and to extend air quality monitoring to Queenstown, where the Earnslow alone is already causing noticeable air pollution year-round. The Council needs to enforce existing air quality regulations and ban biomass burning in all the areas where air quality standards are being breached. And it is also your duty to proactively help accelerate the transition to affordable and clean electric heating systems in the district. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Chris.
Righto. My name is Chris Fitzpatrick. I'm a trustee and vice chair of Happiness House. Most of you will be aware of the important work that Happiness House has done in this community over the past 30 years, probably one of the longest running community organisations. But you may also be aware that our Park Street house has recently sold, and therefore our tenure there is coming to an end. In a sense, Happiness House has been in partnership with the council for much of this period. For the last 20 years, you've assisted with payment and for that of our rental, and we're very grateful for that and acknowledge it. Like other organisations in this community, we're now looking for new premises and hoping to locate ourselves in the optimum location for our clientele in a rapidly expanding community. We have been on the hunt for some time, but with the sale of the house, this has become imperative. But last month, we invited people from a wide cross-section of the community including council representatives, to an evening session to discuss the future of Happiness House and get suggestions for our future location. We are now actively looking for a suitable area of land to relocate a building that we have been offered. The council-owned freehold land at Robertson Street behind Abbeyfield is in an ideal location, would mean we would be sited alongside compatible community organisations. It's shown in the reserve management plan, and we understand the Housing Trust and Mana Tahuna have had discussions with the Mayor and councillors, and we have spoken to Julie and Michael and agreed that our proposed use is compatible with theirs. We thought we could work together on a scheme to allow each of us to occupy that land rather than have it as reserved. We are talking about the orange area there, not the pink hatched area, which is vested. So we just want to make you aware of our interest in that, our access to a building through our community engagement, which we're very grateful for, but obviously finding somewhere to place that building where we could operate is difficult. So I am here to represent Happiness House and just hope that we can have ongoing discussions about that area of land.
Can I say this?
Yes.
You said that you'd been looking for an optimal place for it.
Yes.
If you take away Robinson Street being available, where actually is optimal?
Well, we're looking at the Frankton area.
Not CBD.
No, we want a place where people can come. If you've been to Happiness House, I was there this morning. It's a home, and we understand the difficulty of locating it in amongst other residential areas, but we would like to be somewhere where it's easily accessible, where the majority of our community now live, because we see the need for our services, and the connection has moved from the CBD out towards the Frankton area, and we think that's a good place for us to be for our visitors and volunteers.
It was just a time question. If you already have a building, is there a time limit on when you need that?
No, they're going through consent processes and all sorts of things. We actually have 2 potential buildings. We need flat land, and the new owners have been very understanding, like this isn't happening tomorrow, but we have been pursuing this for quite some time and keep getting up against a block wall. We've had lots of engagement, hence our community Torero at Sherwood, which was really worthwhile, but we want to keep pushing forward with this, realise that time disappears very quickly. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Diane.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for all the work that you do on our behalf as people that live here. And I only just take 3 minutes of your time. I haven't got any real notes, but I've just done a few points that I'd like to discuss with you. I come here every year, or write letters to you every year about fires. I usually start just before, but I'm starting earlier this year because we've got warm weather coming. I've been told we're going to have a terrible hot summer, and I'd like us to have a little bit more happening than what we have at the moment. In Fernhill, where we live, I'm very concerned about the wilding pines and the trees and everything that's going to be, that the doctor is going to turn into his fast track place. I'd like some fire breaks up there. For the wilding pines, I'd like dealt with. And I'd also like people to keep an eye on the freedom, I call them freeloading campers, the people who drive past my window about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, 5 o'clock at night, setting themselves up along the up behind us by the bridge that's and going around the corner to where the bike tracks are. It's camping ground. It's like a wee mini camping ground up that area, and to see them driving down again in the morning. Now, those people, not only are they not meant to be there, they are a fire risk to us, And I would like them to be policed at a regular time and that they understand why it is. It's for the safety of the people that live in Fernhill. If we do have a big fire, and it's going to be, I remember in about 1972 when someone set it alight because they'd lost his engagement ring, that fire burnt for days, burnt, and there were red houses and stuff up there like there are now. But I've seen it happen. It will happen again, and I'd like some work put into this. We've discussed it lots of times with the council, and I've got fobbed off. I've also talked to Fire Emergency New Zealand and been fobbed off. So I'm sick of being fobbed off, and I'd like to see some real energy and work put into this and done quickly. One of the things I was wanting that nobody wanted to have anything to do with was the fire signs that say don't burn, you know, how the danger is. And I'd like one. Now, my husband says nobody reads the signs. Well, when I drive up Fernhill every day, I see the one that says where the water emergency situation is there just before I get around the corner. And on there is a sign saying that there's a builder looking for staff nailed to that. I'd like that removed, and I'd like a big sign saying no fireworks, no open fires for the summer season. We've got to get staunch about it. And having fans tell me, oh, we've got different ways of doing this now, we're communicating in different ways. We've got people arriving at our airport every day, picking up vehicles in various shapes and forms, driving throughout our towns, not just Queenstown, there's other places as well, I'm just focusing on here, driving through, going to the homes that they've booked online, staying for April, bringing their fireworks or whatever that they've got with them because it's just after November and they've got to come for Christmas and they're going to let them off. And they have no idea of what the fire restriction rules are. They've got nobody around to enforce them, and it's seriously important. I had hoped that the government were going to stop firework sales, but they've reneged on that, just like they have on head tax and everything else that might be of use to us. So we need to do it ourselves. So can we please really restrict fireworks in the summertime? It's a ridiculous time to have fireworks. It's all right over there where Guy Fawkes was because it was winter. It's our windy time, warm winds, dry grass, and I've seen fires every damn season since 1970 when I came here. So, what else is it? So, wild and pines, I've covered that, outdoor fires, campers, fireworks, water signage, the problems I have with fans and QLDC with the signage. Fans say it's up to QLDC to give, you can't work together because of where the place of the sign is. The one that's along going, they said there's one going out towards Sunshine Bay. That's fine, but the people who are going up Fernhill don't see that one, and most of the people going to Sunshine Bay are more like the locals and the people who live in Glenorchy from my experience. Now, signage fans, virus, due diligence reapplications. I know you can't do anything to stop the fast tracking, but I hope that we are able to do due diligence on the people who are applying to put into place situations that I think are unmanageable in the beginning, but who's checking to make sure that these people are actually legitimately able to carry out what they say they're going to do. There's one person that I've been following. I wish I'd read about him before I went to the meeting. Time to stop. Okay, the next thing was.
So we've
okay, my only other thing, I know that you can't do anything about that, but I hope you can do something about when they do get to apply. My next thing was about a funeral to a friend who's a long-term local. We had a crazy time trying to organise things. The lady in the cemetery department of QLDC Council is amazing. She's got an unusual name, I can't remember what it is, but she's really, really nice. And we had the best funeral we could have possibly had in the cemetery where he should have been, in the place where the long-term residents were. And so I'd like to say thank you very much because you've made us all very happy to give a returned soldier a good resting place. So thank you, QLDC, for listening to me. And I do hope you take forward what I'm saying about the fires. You've seen already this last week what's happened. I'm starting now and I'll just keep on going, but I'd like you to help me do it, please.
Thanks.
Thank you very much, and good luck with the rest of your meetings.
Thank you. Okay, so that brings us to the end of the public forum. Thank you to everyone that's spoken. We don't have any matters lying on the table from previous meetings, so we'll go to confirm the agenda. Now, there is a late item, so I'm going to read out a resolution that I'll put to you, and that is that the agenda be confirmed with the addition of a late public excluded report to be considered as item 5 on the agenda, seeking decision related to the regional deal. This item is not on the agenda already because the need for decision on this matter has been prompted by events that took place after the agenda was publicly notified on Monday, the 24th of August. Discussion of this item cannot be delayed until a subsequent meeting because a decision on this matter is required to be given as soon as possible, currently proposed deadlines related to the regional deal. So that is a resolution to add an item to the agenda. I'll put that to the meeting. John, you're going to second that? Any discussion?
Can I just ask, we've already got an item 5, so should this be a new item 5 and the other one goes to 6, or should this be 6?
This is item 5. You've got the updated agenda.
So we already had 5 items on the agenda before.
So
One of them dropped off.
sorry, yeah, the other one becomes item 6. Sorry, right, yeah. Good point. Thank you. For those in favour of adding this item to the agenda, please show. So, and then, so that agenda has been adopted. And if we now move to the minutes, we've got 2 sets of minutes because we had the last regular council meeting, and then we had the minutes, the meeting to talk about the amalgamation proposal. So we'll take the sets of minutes separately. So we have the minutes from the 23rd of July meeting, which was held over in the Avon Central Wanaka. Does anyone have any changes or amendments that they wish to make to those minutes? Okay, no. So I'll put the resolution that the draft minutes of the public part of that meeting confirmed as a true and accurate record. Someone second that. Thank you. In favour, please show. Then we have the second confirmation of the second set of public minutes on the 3rd of August. And any matters relating to those? Okay, so I'll put those minutes be accepted as a true and accurate record. Does everybody second that? Thank you, Councillor Mitchell. Those in favour, please show.
Aye.
So those minutes are approved. So we go to item 1 on the agenda, which is the speed management plan approval. And while we're organising ourselves, and just before we go to questions, just to flag that the intention is that we will, when we come to the formal resolution, that we will move the item, and then if there are particular things that people wish to change in the table, then we'll take those as amendments. So we'll rather than sort of trying to amend everything and then we can move the table, put it on the put that motion, and then we can have discussions. If you want to amend particular things, they can raise those. So over to the head of the table.
Thank you very much. Look, it feels like quite a milestone to get here today. It's been a process that we've been doing for, I think, over 4 years now, and through a number of legislative changes and changing priorities, even at different councils. So, look, thank you for the opportunity to allow us to hopefully get the speed management plan across the line. I'm going to hand over to Adrian to start with. We'll take the report as read, but just wanted to highlight a few key points.
Yeah, so I'll just run through a quick summary of consultation. So consultation on the 2026 speed management plan and the 76 proposed speed limit changes was held earlier this year. 53 of these changes were in the Whakatipu area and 23 in Upper. Altogether, 318 people completed a submission, which amounted to 749 pieces of feedback on the individual proposed speeds. Views did vary across the district, particularly between residents and people travelling through an area. However, overall, after analysing all feedback, it was shown that 65% of submissions were in support of the proposed speeds. Feedback on speed on state highways was also collated, and this is going to be submitted to NZTA for their consideration. And further, 127 pieces of feedback about speed on 45 local roads not covered in this plan were received, and this list will be considered for review as part of the next speed management plan. So taken together, the volume and detail of responses demonstrate that speed management is a topic of significance to Queenstown Lakes residents, road users, and community groups.
Thank you. In developing the final recommendations, we considered both the public feedback and also the technical evidence. Thus included factors such as land use, the function of the roads, crash history, the travel time impact, active transport, and overall consistency of the road network. We received mixed feedback from the public, stakeholders, and also the councillors. For example, people who regularly travel along an existing 100k road may consider the 80k reduction as an unnecessary delay to their daily journey. On the other hand, someone who biking or walking along the road, or someone traveling through the area who's unfamiliar with the network may say lowering speed limit as an important safety improvement. So both perspectives are valid. Our role has been to listen to those different perspectives, understand the concept, and apply the evidence consistently when developing recommendations. Most importantly, to clearly explain why each recommendation has been made. We acknowledge that the speed limit has not historically been applied consistently through the similar environment in the district. Achieving greater consistency has been one of the key principles that we try to achieve. However, we cannot address all of those inconsistencies just in the single plan. Thus requires a staged approach. I also want to highlight one of the other benefits of lowering speed limits. They can help support safer and more livable street environments, especially in the locations with more active transport users. Many street upgrades and network improvements has been focused on around lowering speed environments. Thus reflects the current and the future function of the network. At the end, the plan is not only about how fast the vehicle travel, it's about creating a road network where the speed limit reflects how the road is being used, the people using it, and the function we expect the road to serve. Anything to add?
Thanks. Now, over to you.
Okay, councillors, questions? Councillor
Can you talk through which roads we decided to look at and which roads we didn't, and the sort of reasoning
For the entire plan?
for the entire plan?
Yep. So at the beginning of the project, we focused on 4 different areas. So the Queenstown town centers, the areas has been highlighted by public in the past, and the high-risk corridors, and also the areas we have created lots of walking and cycling networks. And so those are the focus areas.
And, yeah, and in addition, there are a number of unlegalised speed limits which had gone through a full process. It's probably fair to say that this was a very organic process as it happened over such a long time. And it started off as being a very minimum. The attempt was to be an MVP to get across formalising the legal status of certain road limits, and then to take some key opportunities where we had capital works or key risk areas that had been raised by the community.
And one more, out of the feedback from the submissions, how many recommendations did you change to reflect the feedback?
In the final report, we are making 3 changes comparing to our original proposal. So that includes current peak roads on the top section. We changed the original 40 kilometers per hour proposal to 50 now. That's to comply with the land transport rule on setting the speed limit, and we also making a minor adjust at the current peak and Belligans Road intersection to reflect on the actual signage location. And the third one we have changed is along Victoria Flat Road because of the recent development, a commercial development in the area. So we are making those 3 changes.
Thank you. Just trying to understand the 85th percentile data and how that is calculated. Is it based on traffic movements as they come out with a congestion traffic movement where there's just some cars are backed up behind a slower vehicle, or is it uncongested traffic where you're measuring a car's movement through that area with no restrictions, not following slow cars, for example?
Yes, so we normally consider the 85th percentile speed as the free flow speed. So that's considering there's probably not traffic like they're not holding up by other traffics. So that's the normal during that's considered as the free flow traffic speed. That's probably most people can travel, how fast they can travel on the road. Yeah, and we so in our analysis, we have the 85th percentile for Glenorchy Queenstown Road. That's the actual traffic data we have collected online. And
is the data accurate enough to allow for the understanding that it is free flow and it's not?
It is free flow, yeah. It is free flow, and
so it only measures the first car, not the second, third, fourth, fifth car.
This is the distribution of the traveling speeds along the network, and I'm sure I explain this. It's probably how fast most vehicles are traveling when there's no other road effectors on the road. Yeah.
Okay.
I've just come around. I was triggered, I guess, when I just think of this example when you talk about cyclists. It goes to the upper Clutha fairly frequently, and Crown Range is often full of cyclists. Was there a reason that road's not before us?
Yeah, we certainly considered Crown Range Road in our original plan, but considering some of the previous public feedback we received in the past, and we think we may focus on Glenorchy Queenstown Road in this review, and we will bring up the Crown Range Road in the next one. As I said, this speed limit review will need to be like a staged approach, so we are trying to build up the public buy-in for the changes.
And would you say there's public buy-in for the Glenorchy Road proposed change?
Overall, I think we do have very strong support passing those rural settlements area like Bob's Cove and Wilson's Bay, we do have some pushback on the 80k speed limit changes. That's kind of expected because that's very often happening on the rural corridors. Yeah, and we have been trying to balance that one and put in considerations, like for example, how fast people are traveling along the roads, and say if we still can improve the safety overall.
Thank you.
No.
Kevin?
Well, just on that section of the bureau that you mentioned. So have you said that there's fairly good buy-in for the section from Queenstown to Bob's Cove? But overall, you know, I think it says in the report, what's the increase in journey time for the proposed reduced speed limit?
For the entire road, the time increase is about 1 to 2 minutes. So 1 minute is for the vehicle who's traveling a little bit slower than fast vehicles, and 2 minutes will be for the person who are traveling fairly fast through the entire network. Yeah.
And then for the section, if we just took out the section from Bob's Cove to Glenorchy, what was the impact on the journey time?
That will be less than 1 minute. Yeah. Yeah, because I guess the majority of the roads is quite, the travel time is very limited on the road geometry. So people who may able to travel a bit faster on the short street sections, but they had to slow down when they reach to the bends or the curves.
Is that the other way? Can I just clarify? Is that the other way around? You mean they would lose more time, or maybe
Because it's only half the length of road. So if you take the full length of road from Queenstown to Glenorchy, it's about 1 to 2 or 3 minutes.
Yeah.
But if we're looking at that half section from Bob's Cove onwards, you're saying it's about 1 minute, 1 to 1.5.
To me, it sounds like you would lose more time because you can go faster from Bob's Cove to Glenorchy. You would lose more time on that direction.
For the entire road from Queenstown to Glenorchy, that's about 1 to 2 minutes. But for the section just between Bob's Cove to Glenorchy, that's less than 1 minute.
So there's only half minute.
Okay.
Because that's just
we've had a question, had the answer.
So I think that's all my questions. I mean, I'm happy to move it when it comes to when you're out the last step.
Okay. Councillor Glenning?
Yeah, first question is just around those journey time differences. Was the data able to separate out different times of the day? So could you separate, say, an early morning tradie driving to work, leaving at 7? What would their journey time be? What would the difference be in their journey time versus someone traveling in the middle of the day as a tourist?
Yeah, so that's why we have been used 85th percentile speed for the analysis. So 85th percentile is the free flow speed that we consider. That will be the probably the very early morning of the tradies traveling on the road.
So could you see from the data the different travel times from the different times of the day?
We can, but we didn't consider it. And
it's just that the 85th percentile is an average, I'm assuming, across the.
So the average speed will be the 50th percentile.
What I'm trying to say, an 85th percentile averaged overall comes. It's hard from the data because we're given one set of data with no nuance around different times and so on.
So the focus for the whole day, not broken down into parts of the day. That's the answer.
Yeah.
Okay. That's the answer.
Yeah. So
what are the it's the taking back over all day time journey. So you've got a conglomerated picture of everything's going on. It's not nuanced.
So that's information from the front.
Yeah. Okay. And second question is just around the crash data. So I'm just looking at the Glenorchy one, page 45.
Council report.
Sorry, the council report. Yeah. And it says we've had 7 serious crashes between 2016 and 2025, 23 minor injury and 52 non-injury. And it talks about the social cost. The first question is, how do we work out the $20.73 million social cost? I'm just interested. Is it based on a number per crash, or how do we get these stats?
So we're talking about the crash cost.
Is it an average based on a number that the statistics department, somebody says this is the average? Okay.
It's
and I'm just
divided by the NZTA case system, so they allocate a social cost to all crashes.
And I'm just interested in, because there were quite a few crashes, but not many of them had serious injuries. I'm just trying to understand, what is a serious injury? What's a minor injury? And given that there were so few serious injuries, does that indicate a lack of speed involved in these?
So there are numerous factors that come into a crash, crash factor. Look, the non-injuries we tend to look at as a lead indicator. So, you know, you could have a crash anywhere on the network, but if you're getting a lot of small non-injury crashes, you know, that can really be a lead indicator of a potential,
But does that indicate low speed?
Well, it can do. I mean, there is often you do have more crashes in a lower speed environment. It's quite hard to draw a direct correlation.
Yeah, just because the data's there, so there is a point in looking at it. I'm just trying to understand what it means in the context of general, because we're saying we want to reduce it to 80 because if you crash at 80, there's less likelihood that you're going to have a serious injury. And we've got some injury stats in front of us, but there are not a lot of serious injuries. I'm trying to get a gauge on what is a serious injury. What is a minor injury?
Usually the person will end up in the hospital and they may need take a couple weeks off work. So it's serious enough that the ambulance will need to be on stand, and people may take weeks or months to recover.
So it's a weeks and months recovery thing. So we're saying from that road, we've got this. Sorry, I know it's difficult, but I'm just trying to get a handle on what the speed has actually caused on that road in terms of the crashes, because 23 are minor, there are only 7 serious. So I'm just trying to understand where the speed is really affected.
Serious could be paralyzed or
and minor
broken bones.
And minor would be no broken bones.
I think mine is just no hospitalisation.
So
okay, the definition.
So
we'd have to come back to you, and NZTA set that definition, but we'd need to come back.
So I've only had 7 serious injuries in 10 years.
Yeah, what we're trying to achieve is the road environment can provide like a safe environment. When crash happen, there's no fatal or serious injury happen on the network. That's what we're trying to achieve. And with lowering the speed limit, the impact when crash happened will reduce significantly. So that's what why we have kept the 80K proposal along the road.
Thank you.
Could I just follow up on one question whilst we're just talking about that? For the crash data on that road that's presented to us, the council have just been talking about, what's information about how many of those were speed related as a cause?
I think we've got coordination.
I actually don't recall what was the actual numbers, but I think when I was looking at the crash data, half of the crash actually doesn't have any road factors or crash factors recorded, but for the crashes that we do have the crash factors, speed is from memory 30 to 40% being recorded, but still the traveling speed or the crash speed is a very big contributor factors at the result of the crash. Yeah.
2 questions. One's kind of around that. Are there other examples around New Zealand where, say, the Crown Range is another good example, where you actually lower from 100 to 80, that crashes are less likely? Because as I was thinking today, I was like, well, you only generally go as fast as you can, which the data kind of does show that people generally drive 80. Is there statistics around other roads around New Zealand that have changed and it's reduced the crash rate?
I can probably provide some information after the meeting, but from memory, Auckland Transport did lots of rural road reduction probably 3 years ago, 4 years ago, and they had very strong crash reduction in the rural area.
Yeah.
Southland have done the same. So we can probably collapse.
And are there other little things? Because obviously it's probably obvious that it's not fully just because of speed, right? It's like there's loads of other factors. Are there any other things that we do aside from speed management?
Well, we do. I mean, that's
Yeah,
why the road maintenance contract, which there's a whole range of physical works that we do, like placement of barriers. We look after the surface so that it doesn't become slippery, so that we make sure we've got texture on roads. So it's just a piece of the puzzle that we use. You know, one of the tools we have to it's very cost effective.
So we're just saying this is one tool that we're going to use. The other question is just quickly, do we have like a consistency around arterial type urban roads? For example, Aubrey Road, around that area is like 60. Do we have a consistency around, let's just take Monaco for example, because it does change around that, or is it case by case?
Well, I think it's been case by case in the history, and that's why we've got quite a disparate application of the rule around the district. And that's one thing we're trying to do, is be really clear in a certain speed environment, in a certain environment, to set the range of the speeds that we would like to sit in. And that's the intent. I think Shingham in the beginning talked about the longer term view of speed management plan, which we should be reviewing every 3 years, is to try and get that consistency across the network.
So would you say that Aubrey Road, one arterial type road, is quite similar to the cemetery arterial road, and therefore maybe they should be consistent?
Oh yeah, I think so. For urban speed limits, we normally consider that it will be the highest speed limit that we want to apply in our network.
What I would say is both those examples are probably what we would call peri-urban roads. And so, you know, as you all know, we've got this huge growth issue and land use change. That means our environment is not just getting more populated, but the land use is changing. And so for us to be able to gauge at which point do you then apply the rural, the peri-urban or the urban environment, you know, it is becoming a bit of a art as well as a science.
Especially with 3 years.
Yeah, exactly. And we do have opportunities to do it in between, but we're trying really hard to get a bit more consistency in the application.
Okay. Councillor Mitchell.
Thank you. I do have 2 questions. I wanted to see if others were going to go there first. But in the things that are required to be considered are safety and potential improvement of safety, duration of journey, and community view. Is there a suggested weighting? Although I did see somewhere in the report that those who live in an area which is speed limit is proposed, that their views are weighted more highly. But is there a weighting across those 3 factors otherwise?
We probably, I would say safety will be probably the number 1 priority in this plan. We may give the time impact as probably less priority in our consideration, because as I said, the speed limit needs to reflect probably the function of the road, the environments that we want to provide to public.
Yeah, thank you. And then the second one was, although there's quite a bit of discussion in here talking about that, the further half of the Glenorchy Road, where it was suggested that 90 kilometres an hour could be a useful compromise. There's quite a bit of discussion here about that it wouldn't be particularly effective. It might be effective, but there's nothing prohibiting us from deciding to go with 90 kilometres an hour. So listen to what the committee said. Thank you. Thanks, John.
Other questions? Okay, Gavin, you indicated you want to put the item. Okay, so that is moved. Somebody second that. Councillor Mitchell. Okay, councillors, discussion.
So before any people move the amendments, can I speak to it? What the reason I've moved it?
If you're happy to take amendment. Yeah.
Obviously, so saying there's only been 7 serious crashes in the last 10 years is a little bit flippant because I'm just glad it wasn't any of us or our families that were involved in those serious crashes. The consultations produced interesting but predictable results, confirming that when we're walking or cycling or otherwise enjoying the areas we live in, we want traffic to slow down, but when we're driving, we want to go fast. Studies have confirmed again and again the safety benefits of speed reductions, proving that lower speeds result in less harm from crashes. Conversely, I've yet to see any evidence that the opposite is true. We find ourselves again talking about increases in travel time and loss of productivity, but I don't buy that. But, for example, for the Glenorchy Road section from Bob's Cove to Wayne Station, the estimated increase in journey time was one minute or so. Different perhaps between a slightly firmer boiled egg for your breakfast in the morning, or maybe one less wheat bix. 3 years ago, Transport Minister Simeon Brown reversed speed reductions implemented under the previous government, against all the evidence showing the safety benefits of the reduced limits. We complain about ministers making decisions against the advice they receive and ignoring all the research based on personal preferences or the loudest voices in their ears. By ignoring the recommendations given in this report, we would be guilty of the same. We are charged with making the best decisions for our communities without fear or favour. We need to see beyond the loudest voices and do what is best for the greatest number, including our visitors as well as our residents and ratepayers. We hear from a small number of people, often a vocal minority, who feel they have much to lose, but the arguments given are often not supported by data, but more on how they will be affected personally. The silent majority often has the most to lose. Arguments based on a supposed low number of crashes caused by excessive speed ignore the fact that to a greater or lesser extent, speed is a factor in all crashes. Lower speeds equals more time to react and correct, and less harm and damage caused when things do go wrong. Not to mention the benefits of reduced tyre wear and vehicle wear and tear and fuel consumption. Following our workshop, staff were prepared to review their recommendations on some sections of road. This has been done, but the end result, we're told in the report, is that the recommendations based on sound evidence have remained. I urge you to trust the work that has been done in the report that has been received and approve the proposed changes. We're often talking hundreds of metres or a kilometre or two of road and only seconds to minutes in time saved. But given the social cost of the crashes that could be avoided, I ask you, is it worth it?
Thank you. Other thoughts, comments?
I wanted to propose an amendment for Cemetery Road in Harlow. Number 61.
Thank you.
And it's to make it consistent with number 62. So going from 80 kilometres to 70 kilometres from your to the main road. I need a second.
I need to second it.
Okay. That amendment for item 61 on the table to replace the proposed speed limit of 50 to be 70. That's moved by Councillor Tucker, seconded by Councillor White. Do you want to speak to your amendment,
Councillor? Yeah, I'm totally supportive of lowering the speed limit on that road. I think I support the staged approach to get public buy-in. I think a lot of the sentiment from the feedback that we heard was that people were supportive of lowering it, but thought 50 was too far, and that the reality is people are going to speed past the 50 k's, which for me, I have a concern about it undermining the actual integrity of the road speed in general. Also, the connections from the main road to Longview Drive, there's only one connection, which is an entry into a subdivision, and there's no conflict in that location. So it seems appropriate to carry the recommendation of that 70k on the west end through to Domain, and then have another look in a couple of years as more development connects to that, at lowering it again, so that it's people start adjusting to driving slow on their road.
Any discussion on the amendment? Okay, I'll put that amendment to the vote. Those in favour of supporting the amendment, please show.
Aye.
Okay, those against? Okay, so that amendment is carried, so the item that's on the table now has 61 as 70. Any other topics to raise? Okay, I'm going to raise the Glenorchy Road. I just wondering my to tell me what number it is in the table. Bear with me.
Five.
Okay.
Number 35 on
We're assuming that's the one you were.
No, I was looking at the Sunshine Baby now. So yeah, I'm 35. I'm going to move the amendment that the proposed speed limit instead of being 80 in that table is 90 kilometres per hour. So is there anyone who will second that? Okay, Councillor Mitchell. Okay. So I'll talk to that amendment, and I'm partly doing that because Councillor Brent isn't here to speak on behalf of the Glenorchy Community Association. He is their body councillor. I'm sure he will be speaking here today. And I'm very mindful of the submission we had from the Glenorchy Community Association and their concerns about that reduction. And yes, they are the squeaky wheels. They are the community association, but I know that there are members of the first responders who sit on that committee, and they are the people who go out to pick up the pieces. And I can assure you that if speed was an issue in a particular place, they would be the first to let us know, as they have done over this winter, where we had probably 6 or 7 serious crashes, vehicles on the roof, coaches on the side. At one particular place, which had nothing to do with a 100k speed limit, it was all about ice on one particular corner, and they were very active in saying we should have some signage for that particular corner. And if you look on page 45 of the agenda pack, you'll see a significant number of crashes in the month of June, which is strange because that is actually the quietest time of year on the Glenorchy Road, but it's also the iciest. And so I think there's to say that the crash data is all about speed is not necessarily, doesn't necessarily hold true. And equally, the crashes in December and January, when we have the busiest times of the year, are actually quite ironically when you're going at the slowest because of the volume of traffic on the road without visiting public. So to say it is all about the speed limit is something that I personally struggle with, and the Glenorchy community would struggle with. And I certainly hear the concern about with the limited number of places to pass. And we all know it can be very frustrating to follow somebody who's driving on at 60 or 70 and on a road where there aren't many places to pass, and the council has invested in passing lanes and a significant amount of barrier up the road. That to then be unable to legally overtake some of the slower moving traffic because you'll be breach of the speed limit, I think sends us on a perilous journey. So that's all I'd like to say to that. And I'll see if anyone else wants to chip in. Yep.
I'll tell you, I mean, if you look at those crashes by month, you're right that June is quite high, same as January. But if you look at summer, December, January, February, there are more crashes than winter, June, July, August. So, I don't think taking 1 month in isolation when it's perhaps a bit frosty is fair. The sections of that road through from Vodka to Wona, where people are travelling over that proposed 80 limit are limited. There's only 4 or 5 sections of about between 1 and 2 kilometres where people are actually going above that limit anyway. And then all they're doing is getting to the next corner and slamming on the brakes so they can safely go around it. So, I mean, every time I've looked at it, I've thought I cannot see the benefit of having a higher speed limit. We've been clearly told that the safety benefits are not achieved by a 10 kilometre an hour drop compared to the 20 kilometre an hour drop. And the time difference is so insignificant.
Any other discussion?
I'm actually a bit torn on this one because I don't think that it should change. So I'm surprised that you went for still a reduction. And I know we can't ask questions, so it's kind of rhetorical, or maybe someone else can answer it for me when they talk. But I from the feedback from both the consultation and the community association, I would have thought that we should have just kept it at 100. That's all I would say.
I only have one thing to say on that. I don't think they're saying that reducing the speed is the only thing that we're going to do to bring down crashes. I feel like that's a bit harsh. You just literally said before it was a part of the tool. I don't know. I agree. It would be nice to be doing some other things, in when it's frosty, when all these different areas. I think there's lots more we could do, perhaps. But I just don't. They're driving 80 anyway. I'm unsure why we're having such a problem moving it to what they're driving, even though it's like the 85th percentile.
Councillor.
I think the difference is when you drive it all the time, you see many once, and the stats, the data gives you one view, but it doesn't give you all that detail. It doesn't tell you what on a dry road in the morning and a trainee getting to work early, the speed that they can travel and what they can make up on those very wide, straight, dry sections. I think the people that are driving fastest know the road. They know the conditions. They know in winter when to drive slower. They know where the corners are, so they know how to slow down well ahead of time. So, you know, I get the braking arguments and so on, and yes, there will always be that. But I think in general, people have the ability to make up some time, because sometimes you do get behind a very, very slow vehicle. And it is a long drive if you're doing it, you know, every day, backwards and forwards to work. Does matter to people. I think sometimes too, there's that middle ground. I think if we drop to 80, it's only 10k difference. So that 10k difference is, you know, how much difference is that going to make in terms of that gap in terms of health and safety anyway. But I think we'll get better compliance. I don't think we'll end up with as frustrated a community. I think we'll end up with a community that has said, people have heard the feedback. We've heard the feedback from both sides. I think we've heard what staff are saying. I think we've heard what the communicators are saying. I think it's a useful compromise. I think we'll achieve compliance. I think we will improve some of the safety. I have had people fly at me too fast around some of those corners. There are people that drive that road too fast. I don't know if it's going to change when you change the speed limit. But I do think 100 k's is too fast. I think 90 is a happy compromise.
Thank you. Councillor Mitchell.
Yeah, I'm right.
I've got a question. When
You want to go first?
Yeah, sorry.
There we go.
Sorry, I did try to get in before we voted on the amendment, but unfortunately I'll have to sort of speak to that in retrospect. I'm troubled that we've now ended up with a motion on the table that's quite awkward at Hawea, because someone would leave the Hawea Dam, they would enter a 50k section of Domain Road with the dam on one side and a very wide road reserve, but it's restricted to 50. They'd hit Cemetery Road where we've got urban land on both sides and suddenly jump back to 70. I had tried to sort of preempt this and saying, if we're going to treat that, at least look at it holistically, and we need to say, well, if you're entering that zone, maybe, you know, that's part of the urban zone. And I did make a case, at least for consistency, to say that maybe it could be 60 all the way from the roundabout right through to the 125 metres east of Muir Road. But I'm just really concerned we've ended up with a real mismatch now, because we haven't actually addressed those other interactions. So I'm a bit torn there. I actually just speak to Gavin's point, is I do think we risk political intervention in something that is pretty objective is really difficult, and this demonstrates why. So if we want to make different changes, as I said, I'm okay with it, but we have to do it in a way that makes sense. And it simply doesn't, what's on the table currently.
Okay, so what I would advise Councillor Smith, if you want to propose an amendment to rationalise those different zones, then have a think about that and just come back to us, and we can talk to that, because I hear what you say. Councillor Mitchell was about to speak.
Thank you. Yeah, unlike you, Mr. Mayor, I'm not travelling with Glenorchy Road as much as I used to, but I've had the opportunity to drive up there quite a few times recently with my day job and some social stuff. So what I did was practiced the various rules. I did it at 80 k's, and that was pretty frustrating, particularly because I used to drive the road a lot faster than I probably should have. But I did feel safer. People behind me were frustrated at a couple of points. I then did it at 90, and I found I did that, and that felt quite comfortable. I then did it at my usual around about 100 wherever I can. And at the end of it, I found that the 90k trip took me less time than the 100k trip by about 2 minutes, because I wasn't speeding up and slowing down so much. So I think that if we go to a 90k limit for this, that it actually, contrary to the logical advice given by staff and consultants, which is great, that a 90k limit, which is an exception, actually gives a signal that this road is different, and that so probably we need some better signage at the start of the road, so when people join it, they understand what it is. Most days I'm driving between Kingston and Frankton, where it's 100 k's on a state highway. In most places, there's not many more accidents there than there are on the Glenorchy Road. So I don't think that speed is the particular element, but there are parts of that road that should definitely be lower than 100. I think a 90k compromise shows that we're listening to the safety concerns and making some difference. We're also listening to the community because they don't want to be impeded going about their business.
Any more discussion on this item? I'll just say a couple of words before we put that one to the vote. And yes, I hear that we have an officer's report. I hear we have some technical advice. If that is the most important thing, why do we even bother asking our community, right? Because we may as well just commission a report and just agree. So, and I don't think we can have it always. I don't think we can say we have consulted, but none of these people are experts. Therefore, we're not going to listen. So and part of what we are here to do is to represent what we hear from our communities. And I don't think any of us are intending to be reckless in how we discharge that duty. And I think there are times when we get some really good guidance from our communities, and they are not all about just their own position. So I'll leave it at that. I'll put that amendment to the vote, and to those who support replacing the 80 km/h figure with a 90 km/h on that stable for the Glenorchy Road, please show. Next. That's 7, that is carried. Was that your hand up to speak, Quentin, or was your hand up to support?
No, I didn't support that, sorry.
Okay.
But I'll just briefly touch on, you did invite me.
Hang on, Quentin, so there are 6 in favour, those against, please show. 1, 2, 3, 4, so that is carried. Okay. Okay, so Quentin, we'll come back to you. Were you going to propose the amendment?
Well, look, I've looked at it. I don't think I can really, because it would result in a 50% increase of a speed limit on part of Domain Road, of which I've got no case for. So I can't, other than to say that I think this is resulting in a fairly messy outcome, because, yeah, which is unfortunate.
Okay, thank you. So we've had 2 changes to what's on the table. Is there any other proposed changes, or do we want to just go to discussing the table? Okay, we wanting to speak?
No amendments. I just wanted to overall.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Councillor Wong.
Is that time to do it?
Yeah.
Right, thank you very much. Firstly, the 1 mile to Sunshine Bay, I think that's a great move. The community called for it, and there was an excellent way to happen at 100 k's. So I think that's a great move, and the community accepts that. Secondly, I'm not a speed or traffic engineer, so I find this really difficult to make any comments on speed whatsoever. And I was very conflicted around Glenorchy. Sometimes I went 100, then I thought 90, then I thought 80, and I came back to the realisation, actually, I have no idea because I'm not a speed or traffic engineer, and so I have to respect the information that's put in front of me by experts. So that's unfortunately where I landed, and probably all I'll say on that. But yeah, I do sort of reiterate the mayor's comments there that we have gone out for consultation. We've heard loud and clear on certain roads, certain speeds, and we potentially are choosing to ignore that. So yeah, sometimes I do wonder about consultation.
Also to that, I appreciate all the work that you've done, and I agree with 95% of the recommendations. You're, succeeded at your role in giving the best advice possible from a safety perspective. I, like others, have concluded that it's still our responsibility to represent the community views and find a compromise approach where we know it's going to get better buy-in in order to get a stage approach so that people actually start accommodating these new speeds and then, working our way through to the end goal. I completely understand, the want to be ambitious, but I think all we're doing is trying to actually meaningfully reflect that feedback so that the community don't feel like no matter when they engage, they're completely ignored anyway because we just do what we were going to do anyway. So I think there's a huge public trust element that we're restoring by having that acknowledged in the recommendation that we're doing. I don't see it as undermining, I see it as including that feedback. And yeah, happy with, again, thank you for addressing Cane Road. Multiple crashes that we sent through. The communities are incredibly happy about that amendment. And like I said, there's a lot of great stuff in here. So not to overlook any of that work that's been done.
Well said.
Councillor King. No. Oh, no. Do you want finish off?
I'll just speak briefly. I agree with the comments about the quality report. I think it's great. The detail that you've gone into and attempting to reflect community views in it has been great. And through that, it's enabled us with the knowledge that you've provided with us to also carry out democratic duty and listen to the communities and some freedom of movement in there to try and ensure that we achieve results that are not only highly effective, but also acceptable to our communities. So thank you for that. Thank you for the work.
Okay, Quentin, will you speak on your speak? No, okay. Right in reply.
Okay. Well, I am a little bit disappointed that we've made these couple of changes without really any evidence to back them up, other than opinion. I mean, for me, I have to keep reminding myself when we have a consultation is that the consultation is not a deliberative poll on which way we should vote on things. We've got much more information and a broader view of where we need to go with the decisions we make. I mean, it's not as simple as taking a poll of those people that are inclined to reply to a consultation. That information that does come in was used to review the recommendations that were made to us, and the review came back without changing anything that was recommended. And that's sometimes the way it goes. But we are hopefully going to approve this as a whole with those amendments made. My consolation is that, as you said, it's a staged review, so there might be another chance to relook at them in the future. And I just hope we don't have to sit here and hear a report of another crash on Glenorchy Road that could have been avoided by having a slightly lower speed limit. It might have saved someone or cost someone half a minute of time.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you. So we'll put that one to the vote. Those in favour of approving the item and the table as amended. All right.
Aye.
Against? That is carried. Thank you. We'll move on to
I'll record an abstention, please.
of an abstention. Councillor Smith is noted. Thank you. Item 2 on the agenda is the local electorate act. Choice of electoral system and review of Mary Ward.
And I think he's tonight, they will they get to us.
So the primary of this item is the note the 2027 representation review, or whatever comes in local government going forward, and then to agree the electoral system for council and the community board for next two elections, knowing that we discussed this at a previous workshop, and also that to note that we do not qualify for a married ward. Do we have Warwick Lamp online?
It's just joining now.
He's just joining, so just to advise councillors, Warwick Lamp is our electoral officer. So if there are any particular technical questions, Warwick will be able to advise, but hand straight down to the end of the table.
Thanks very much. So that's pretty much what I was going to say. I'm John Whitmore, Democracy Services Manager, for those following online. And with me up at the table, Rebecca Pitts, the Democracy Services Director, and Ian Dunbar, our Acting General Manager for Corporate Services. So thank you also to Warwick for joining us today, in case there are any technical questions, with which we appreciate your assistance. With that, I'll take the report as read. I'm happy to respond to any questions as best we can.
Any questions, councillors?
Maybe speaking of
Okay, so no questions. That's moved by Councillor Wong, seconded by Councillor White. Councillors, any discussion? No, I will put that straight to vote. Those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those against? That is carried. Thank you, staff.
For clarity, I supported that, but it might not have saved.
That's the role. Excellent. The next item on the agenda is for the 6 monthly update of the climate biodiversity plan. Shall we do that? You don't get up.
How long are you going to be there?
So, thanks for sending through the report. Probably just if there are questions from councillors, just as we just referred to the relevant page, we get back for the report, so we can follow those. But leave you to introduce the report. Kirsty, to introduce the paper.
Before you is our regular 6 monthly update on our progress of implementation of the climate and biodiversity plan. So this represents the first year, and happy to say that 100% of our actions are underway. So that's pretty exciting. Of the 50 actions underway, 43 are considered green or on track. 7 of those are amber, where there's consideration of delivery timing or organisational capacity constraints or dependencies outside council's direct control. So 4 of these amber actions relate to the way we do things and changing the way we do things to achieve a more sustainable outcome, which, as you know, is quite difficult at a time when there's a lot of other organisational change going on. So we are working with teams across council to support them where we can, and also align with existing change programs where that makes sense. 2 of the amber actions relate to sustainability investments, which have timing or cost considerations for projects. So again, we're in touch with those teams. And one of the actions, the ratepayer assistance scheme to improve access to residential solar and batteries. That's outside of our control because it requires central government support. That's a brief overview of the progress report. And
no.
Happy to respond to any questions.
Thank you for that. Councillor.
Awesome. Love the report. It's so easy. The reg data stuff. Sorry, I just have to say this because it's the best that we've seen so far. I think you've highlighted the ones that we need to look at, and to many of which is really, really good. I do want to have a look at some of those. So the agrochemical reduction program, which you probably anticipated I might ask about. What do we need to get that moving? Because it's been sitting there for about 5 years. I don't think
it's across council program, so it requires input from multiple teams. Some of those teams have to reprioritize work. So we're looking to support where we can, but it's not a project that we're leading as such.
Yeah, and it hasn't been, and that's been how it's been for the last 5 years. I guess do you have any recommendations as to what we need to do, or what we through the long-term plan in terms of investment, in terms of direction, to actually ensure there is capacity to do that one?
I'll speak to the chair.
Right.
There is certainly interest. There is supply capability. There is a growing body of, I guess, information and evidence from other councils that we've created in this space. There's also the application of best practice at the moment. We are seeing some really strong examples of that. And through the recent reserves operation and maintenance contracts, there's a good chance to renew through some of these obligations and opportunities with suppliers. Similarly, with the transport OM kind of contract that is coming up, a lot of the agrochemical usage is in the transport and roading space. There is obviously some challenge, not challenge, but there are some very specific requirements around safety and the rest of it around weed control, spraying. So there is, it has, I guess, been slower than perhaps we would like, but we are moving towards a reduction policy, something that will give something a bit more substance to what council is committing to in the space.
Okay.
And that is something that then we can tie, I guess, contractor obligations to, and we can kind of set, I guess, what the expectations are. So it is an interesting space as you explore it. It's not as simple wins as you often expect. There's a lot of broader considerations that have to be taken into how we approach it. And again, in a fairly constrained, I guess, operating space, it has been just one of those matters that's sitting there waiting to be action.
Okay, that's great. I might have something down the track. Just in terms of the embedding into decision making, the project management, the best practice carbon management. Again, it seems to be that expertise has to be embedded in each of the different departments of council. Would that be fair, or is there how are you planning to do that? Maybe is a better question. I know there are different things here, but they sort of have the same themes. How are you planning to inject that thinking into different areas? Is it through trainings or templates or policy? What is it?
I'll speak to all of the above, I guess.
Okay.
There's a significant amount of work happening in the organisation development space. We're also in a period where we are looking at, obviously, new entity. So the frameworks that we use for delivering activities, like the project management framework, a lot of efforts going into, I guess, establishing best practice in that space. Similarly with procurement, understanding what best practice procurement looks like. Now, sustainability principles aren't as part of best practice toolkit. So they are progressively being implemented throughout council. You will see sporadic examples of best practice as well as kind of still other areas where there is complexity. So we are looking at areas of opportunity where, for example, a project can deliver some of those principles of practice. And then that becomes, I guess, part of the level of expectations around it, or the learnings that we can take and apply across other areas. But progressively, council is investing in its process frameworks, and we're seeing sustainability objectives and toolkits associated with it can dovetail quite nicely into that.
Okay. All I'd say, Pammy, is it would be really, sorry, it's not a question, but it would be really useful to understand for any of these things that aren't tracking when they're supposed to, if there's something that we can do around this table to help get it on track, it would be really helpful to know. Thank you.
Councillor Smith.
Yeah, thank you. I was just relating to 6.1, 6.2, 6.3. Given the title says investing in our future transport network and the challenges we face in actually getting investment, I'm really surprised to read that is on track. I would, and that I think it would be significantly overstating the status to consider it on track. And I'm also concerned that while we've made some improvements, I'm not quite sure we've developed smarter parking solutions at this point either. We've got a long way to go in actually implementing smarter parking solutions. So.
Would you like to respond to that? And then
yeah, well, I'll leave the active transport one because we are making some inroads, but those other two, the program and the parking, I would like a response to.
I think the indicator, the RAC status is green on track to achieve that, as opposed to having been achieved. So I think that's a really important point to note, that we're moving in the right direction at the pace of it. Yeah. Not to say there aren't obstacles and things that get dropped in the way along the path.
And
I don't think don't think we could say that we're on track to achieve investment in our future transport network, though. I mean, I don't think there's any world in which we've got any certainty or any progress towards an invested transport network at this point.
I'll respond to the I think it's a fair comment, Councillor Smith. Look, obviously 6.1, where we are talking about a wider investment. This action is meant to be, I guess, focused towards shared transport and public transport. We know how large the transport challenges are for this district. So in this report, we are attempting, I guess, to provide a way to report back on the progress that is being made, particularly with regards to travel mode shift and partnerships with local organisations. The smarter parking solution, we know that there is broader, I guess, parking management work program in there with the opportunity, I say, for some smarter activity in there. So that's, we try our best to, I guess, align with other work programs within council, provide a way to report it and give context around how that is supporting some of the sustainability, climate action, resilience and biodiversity outcomes. But yeah, so we can look at how we, I guess, classify the status of that and provide the right framing so that it's quite clear about what we're trying to, I guess, focus on through this reporting.
Yeah, and I suppose I've said this before regarding the Grow Well reports and monitoring reports and stuff. This is one of the risks with the traffic light system, is that it doesn't explain that nuance and it doesn't explain the risks and challenges which are in front of us on that, it almost, and I've said it before, it's almost like they need another column that says what are the barriers, things getting in our way, the legislative and the funding challenges and things that it's always fine that these just don't quite show the real status.
We'll just to the pilot, the AMBER status usually does provide us with that opportunity. I think, as you quite rightly said, being quite clear about which ones are providing that summary of risks, constraints, and things that are a barrier. I would certainly take that forward. Would you fair to say, funding announcements or investment announcements by government agencies might change from a green to an amber? We're hang on, on the next.
But noting that the deadline for this having is 3 weeks ago.
Correct. Yeah. So fair enough. Okay. Kevin.
There's a couple of ones. So mainly I was looking at the risk ones. The ones, I mean, a lot of those have significant cost associated with them, so they're obviously a little bit difficult sometimes. But one that did stand out to me was one Nick mentioned was the embedding into QLDC decision making. That seems like it wouldn't necessarily have too much cost, but obviously there's resource. But is there any involvement in that process with the climate reference group, or whatever they call it?
Yeah, accurately titled. Yes, we do meet 6 weekly with the climate reference group. They're not a project steering group, though they do provide us with guidance and direction. We talked with them around this, particularly the leadership kind of set of actions, which this action falls within. Largely that is about supporting council's change journey. Change journeys, particularly during very busy periods, can be quite, I guess, difficult. But we are seeing, incredibly good engagement across council. We've recently run a series of workshops with all the leadership teams talking about the roles that each organised directorate has for the CBP. Well, reinstate, the CBP is not being delivered by Kirsty Tilley and myself. It is an organisational commitment, and much of the work is happening obviously across different directorates. So keep working with them to understand how they, the role they play, but also how they can factor, therefore, the objectives that we see here in their decision making. It's an ongoing process, but I'm really pleased with the support and commitment we've had. So,
no, I mean, obviously from this, it's easy to see that it's not just one of those reports that's been put up on a shelf.
Well, that's what we're trying to hope to achieve.
The only other question I had was item 6.2 on page 151 refers to the active travel initiatives. It refers to the council involvement in the Aotearoa Bike Challenge in February. That certainly happened last year. I have a feeling though that council perhaps wasn't as involved in it this year. So I think the subscription involved was like
the involvement page, but we could definitely promote it through.
Right. Oh yes. Yeah, very good. Yeah. Okay.
And historically, we've worked obviously very closely with Lightfoot and with regards to that. So there is the separation between the local initiatives that we pick up and promote very strongly, and the subscription to the overall ABC.
Very good. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor King.
I just have a few questions. Page 142, 2.7, is talking about how we have Does CODC do this?
Climate scenario.
Yeah, climate scenarios.
That's a good question. I can respond through the fact that we are part of an organisation, so the Otago Climate Officers Group. Right, so this is an organisation, sorry, regional-wide group of council staff who are involved in climate change. Central Otago are represented in that. So we work quite closely with them, sharing information on what we're doing. I can't comment to the extent about picking up some of this work, but it's certainly on their radar. It's been driven, I think, through their policy and strategy.
I think it's worth noting that we've always been sort of keeping pace with the metros when it comes to our work in this space. We're sort of fast following behind the larger organisations. So some of the smaller councils around the local area tend to look to us for some leadership in that space.
Yeah.
And the OCOG group has done some phenomenal work working in partnership with the regional council that I think is going live quite soon.
Yeah.
Officially called Climate Story, and it looks at all of the whole region and the different stories and how you can see the impact of climate change in your particular location, the risks and hazards that are ahead of you. So it's a very lively space, but I think some of the smaller councils don't have dedicated resources for this.
Yeah, so the encourage you to have a look. Yes, so Queenstown is well represented, and we've contributed into that. It's a story map essentially, and we hope that it's a useful tool.
3.6 local food resilience. You've got the word partnership, and in other words, you use support. Is that basically dollars? Is that the difference?
For that particular action, yes. Yep.
And why do we not support in that particular one?
It's been an interesting space, food resilience. Very topical, it's very complicated. So I will say QLDC has played a lead role in terms of funding some of the early work that's been behind the development of at least 2 reports on the food resilience status of this district. Those reports have been very strongly appreciated and recommended, and some research that's happening as well. They've looked at in total, I guess, the evolving nature of how this district accesses its food and the vulnerabilities that are associated with that current state. So there's been 2 reports that the WOW team have pulled together, and then that's been part of the formation of the Southern Lakes Sky Collective as a collective way to try and say how we move that forward. So we had quite direct funding for the research reports that were done. They were done through solidarity funding, and maybe some of the other regional funders. More recently, we're kind of just providing in-kind support to the team. We're participating in the Southern Lakes Sky Collective, and we're just assessing what the next steps are. There is a specific piece of work around emergency food, which I think dovetails really nicely into the space, which may be a piece of work that we look at. But generally, there's a coalition now that Southern Lakes Food Collective, and they are working collaboratively across sectors, not-for-profits, local community groups, to see how can they start to continue to build resilience into that local food system.
Yeah, I'm just pretty sure they need support to do it. And then 7.2 on page 153. What does that mean? It's 7 point. It sounds interesting.
Oh, yes, I will give it a go. There's a lot of expertise in the district, and looking at what's council's role in supporting the growth of the sector. So we're looking at whether it would be helpful to commission a network or organise a network of practice to get experts down to talk about things like nature finance and some of those more complex concepts out there.
I think I'd just tag in there as well that this came very strongly through the climate reference group. So it is more ambitious, it's more aspirational, and as we move towards this and this sort of kind of knowledge base, and how can we lead that into our work, or more to the point, make it available to others within the district. So there's possibly some opportunism in there. When speakers are coming through, we bring them into the fold to speak to relevant groups and things like that. But yeah, it's definitely it's quite an unusual action.
And just a final wrap. I mean,
it's no surprise that for the conservation sector funding, this is one of the biggest challenges. A huge amount of voluntary hours in the blood that go out, predator control, planting, all those programs. There is an evolving space of, there are significant international funding opportunities. We're seeing this internationally. Nature credits, carbon sequestration credits. It's an fast evolving space. We are seeing some national direction in this, with MFE talking about the structures that are needed, or the old MFE, so I should support the new ministry now, to kind of ensure that New Zealand has a position in the international nature financing space. And so what we are seeing just in the recent months is some quite clear discussion papers, guidance, and even some projects around the country where some of these opportunities are starting to come together. So there is an interest in this space, and we are pursuing it largely through the Upper Lakes Integrated Catchment Group to say, what does the funding look like? And how can we start to look at genuine opportunities for sizable funding to support nature restoration activities? And I will just make a final note that represents an opportunity for council going forward with the restoration program, which is part of that natural infrastructure discussion I'll be having with you.
The linking point here around the economic diversification plan is quite critical. There's a whole section in the ED plan that talks about how do we turn a lot of these volunteer organisations into viable businesses and so they can maintain themselves and be sustainable when funding streams change. So that's actually quite a critical piece to sense make for this item as well.
It's interesting. It is interesting.
A question on the food sustainability. Under our current district plan, however long it may live, we've got a classification for valuable soil somewhere, I think highly valuable soil. Do we think that's in danger of going, or do we?
The planning question.
I was just putting it out there because it's ironically it was probably put in by the farmers that wanted to avoid us putting houses on their farmland. And of course, now we might have to pay them not to put houses on their farmland. So it's in the planning as we have to revisit and redo our plan. That's probably really key. We try and see how we can address that. Okay, that's a statement, not a question.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. When we get to that point, when farmers and other rural land users or owners have made submissions in the past to retain a particular zoning, and then they suggest that the plan is then inhibiting that, they might then want compensation for it. It's going to be interesting conversation. I don't think they'll win. So a couple of questions though. One, in that transition to regenerative tourism, etc., do you keep a measure of how many tourism businesses have signed up to the Tiaki promise or those sorts of things?
Through the chair, look, we do work really closely with DQ, obviously, but the Tiaki promise is its own thing, and we're probably very confident that they will have some degree of record. There are other kind of commitments that have been made locally, such as the Glasgow Declaration, which DQ have signed up. So the DMP these are brother and sister, the CBP and the DMP. They work very closely together. There's a significant level of overlap, and we have quite productive regular meetings to look at the shared work program. So there is a lot of good progress, John, with the tourism operators. It's largely driven by the DMP program.
We had a fairly impassioned submission this morning from a community member, Diane Smith, talking about the wildfire hazard, particularly with this extreme El Nino on its way, already affecting New Zealand because shipping through the Panama Canal has been reduced 25% because of low water, so it's already affecting New Zealand. I see in here in 3.5 on page 145, somewhat contrary to what Diane said, she has experienced at least that that QLDC should be working closely with FENS and in particular working with community groups and communicating about wildfire hazard. What is planned in the next little while, because although it might not believe it today, summer's on its way, what's happening with that?
It's a very topical question. I wasn't expecting be asked today, particularly light of the event. The summer activity was 3 weeks.
Yeah, we can hear that.
Last Saturday evenings. In Albert Town.
Sure.
So wildfire is one of our
obviously clear climate risks, and it's a hazard that we're having to manage very much through a variety of avenues. So emergency management, obviously it's one of those hazards that we are preparing for. We work closely with FENS in terms of response planning and understanding are we prepared for events such as Saturday night. The broader and the most significant council commitment is through the Parks team. They are leading their wildfire mitigation program. I believe there's a workshop coming up in early September to talk about, I guess, the direction of that program. That largely is a landowner responsibility. We're looking at how we manage wildfire risk on our reserves and the commitment we're making long term to perhaps the restoration of various species and to moving away from that. Sure. So that's a significant piece of work, and all of that is often done with the combination of community. I think you've got an update in your inbox today with regards to the Albert Town fire, with regards to looking at the next steps, replanting, and work has already been underway for a while to look at what the right species are for that area. So there is always a strong level of community engagement, particularly for the Parks team and the work they're doing. Similarly with community resilience groups. I do want to give a shout out to the Wanaka Community Resilience Group, who are very active on Saturday nights. They're preparing themselves, sharing information throughout social media, talking to neighbours and partners. And it's exactly the type of response we do want to see at a community level. They're leaning in and taking some proactive steps. So we have a super El Nino on its way. There has been recent briefings to Christchurch City Council around the super El Nino, the fire preparedness for the coming season. We'll look to bundle some of that into the workshop that's coming up and ensure that you guys have received a good briefing. So there is, I think, quite a significant level of commitment being made into the space, and the partnership with FENS is paramount. And I will comment that with my compliments not only to the team that are out on Saturday, but the way in which the partnerships evolved over the last few years. There's very strong collaboration, and the FENS team, local FENS team, doing great.
Thank you. So noted in there is that the delivery in 3.3, the district-wide community resilience group, Hui, when's that planned for? Is that going to be in time for this summer?
We're planned for November at the moment.
Right. Yeah. Cool. Thank you. Hopefully that's front of mind for that. My final question then relates to the energy space. So 4.2. So we've got again, looking forward, although this was clearly happening previously, but a proposal from Lakeland Network at Remarkables Park for a large and larger down the track network battery. I see that they're talking about needing resource consent. That considered the regulatory side of the house. Get that. What role are we playing to proactively assist them in achieving that, if any?
Yeah, there's quite a lot happening, obviously, in the energy space. But it is all quite a proactive and positive story. So there is a lot of focus, obviously, on constraints of our local energy network. A couple of us, including myself, are in the forecasting work program as part of that to see how much, what is the projections around energy demand for this district, what will it mean in regards to reaching certain thresholds around transmission network. There's a clear call to say the more battery capacity, the more kind of local generation we can get in the next few years. The opportunity is to defer that. That's quite a big goal for us to try and aspire to. To assist in that, we are seeing quite a significant level of investment in grid-scale batteries across the district. We are aware of a variety of projects. It's really great that PowerNet were able to unveil that particular battery project, but we expect more to be coming. They are going through the right regulatory channels, John, and we know that there's a national policy statement that's kind of supporting some of that, I guess, that regulatory pathway for those projects to go through. We also know that Aurora are trying to incentivise those investment in batteries through their flex market rates, which basically means, nodding to some people in the room might know this, the more you can kind of offset your usage during certain times of the day, you will see financial benefits from that, regards to reduced prices or some level of incentives that come from Aurora's flex market. So there is quite a lot happening. Council on its own is also looking at obviously what it can do through its energy roadmap. So we are expecting to see more batteries being installed, probably more solar opportunities, and it's being targeted through business, but also residential. So it is a very active space. A lot to kind of, I guess, wrap up in a small kind of action update. But I think this is an area where, you know, this district is on the leading edge of it. Again, I'm unsure about when certain regional deals may be signed and the rest of it, but we're aware that electrification is a big part of that package as well. And so that will provide another set of tools potentially regarding how we can see accelerated uptake. So probably a lot packaged up there. I'm not sure if I did answer fully your question, Councillor Mitchell, but
Good enough.
Yep,
Good enough. Thank you.
Yep.
Oh, thank you. Well, what question?
It's a question about a potential solution. Where does that sit? Do I just say it down the track, or could I ask the chief exec? Well,
we'll talk about the discussion.
Yeah, and they can still be at the table just in case.
Yeah. Okay, so I mean, we've just touched on a fraction of this report, but we've got wildfire, transport, energy, food production. You know, just so well done you on being experts on everything. So with I'll put the resolution that we note the contents of the report, the tax progress report. So I'll just second that one, please. Councillor Mitchell. Discussion, Councillor Black.
So I was talking about those ones that were just not quite on track around the capacity of the organisation to actually get moving. But there's that whole thing about let's not wait until we're really good at something or whatever to start making it visible or having a crack, trying it. What I'm wondering, our council reports have a risk section, but they don't have a sort of a sustainability section. It might not be relevant to every report that comes to the table, but what I'm wondering is if we had in our reporting templates so that it would trigger staff when they're bringing something to us to highlight the areas of the plan that are relevant and the considerations around that within and sometimes that will come through in the options, but not necessarily. So I'm just wondering if there is a trigger.
So we're constantly alive to how do we systematise this?
Yeah.
And we have kicked that around actually a number of times to bring that up in case. Yes, it is an option. I think a bigger question really in the format of our reporting is around how do we cast all of the appropriate strategic lenses of the various plans and things that we have in play and ensure that that is feeding through into the report really effectively. I think this is something we can take that away and give it a little bit more thought. We can get along a bit faster because that could be the interim step to bringing all of the right and the to the table. What I would say is that that in and of itself that is helpful for decision making. But in terms of actually sort of the cultural change in all the different layers, there's more work to be done. And I do think that what we've been hearing around some of the amber items that are about the way that we work as an organisation, there's pockets of good practice. And actually during the QLDC of the future work that we're doing, this needs to actually be taken through as an organisation development priority. So I think that's where we should really be hoping to see some better traction in that.
That sounds good. The other one that I thought of was tracking around procurement. We're going to a review of the procurement policy at the moment. There is no sustainability objective in there and through the policy. I know it sits in some of the stuff underneath, probably in the templates and maybe in practice, but there is no directive at a high level. But also we don't track, I don't think, when we put sustainability criteria into our procurement plans for, measuring, what different organisations can offer us. We don't track that. And I'm just wondering if it would be useful because project managers write up these plans, they're spread across the organisation. We've got no data on what we're doing, who's doing it well, how we're doing it. It's not a directive to do anything in particular, it's a directive to track the sustainability criteria that are going into some procurement plans.
Well, I'll take that away and have a look at it. It depends a little bit on the system and the way that things are recorded in the system, how easy it would be to track. I completely agree.
Again, these things are low cost, they're system things. We should be able to change them relatively easily. It might trigger people to do things differently, but it'll also it'll give us information to work from.
I understand the intent you've got there. I think I'll give it some thought as to how that actually plays out.
Thank you.
Any more discussion? Okay, I'll put that to the vote. Those in favour, please show. Aye. That is carried. Thank you. All right. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. We now go on to the chief.
15-minute report.
Do you want to break?
Yeah.
Sorry, I just got one.
Okay.
We're supposed to at 3 hours.
Yeah.
It wasn't.
still in public, and we are going to the Chief Executive report where we have two items. One regarding the Wonka Airport liaison terms, really good reference, and the adoption of the Flora Reserve Management Plan. Michelle, let's you speak for your report.
I will take the report as read. I am joined by people online, Paul, and some others in the room who are far more into the detail of some of these areas, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Happy to move.
Yeah, I don't.
Have a second. Any discussion?
One question.
Oh, you were quick enough. Okay.
It's just around the Kawerau Reserve Management Plan, and there's a bit in there about around prohibiting use of the reserve for water attenuation, stormwater, and so on. And I get it if you want it for recreational purposes. I guess my question was, is prohibit too strong a word? I'm thinking about protecting waterways, what we do with stormwater, and where, if we can't do it there, which absolutely may be the wrong spot, where do we? Are we using the word prohibit too lightly? And I don't know. I just wondered, was it a consideration?
I will have to defer to my colleagues in the room. Do you have an answer for that one?
Yeah, so basically, yeah, the impact of stormwater on the company got that as well. And we seem to have that line and stormwater reserves.
Yeah.
And some instances they can play visual benefits with recreation values, which they can go on with some recreation values.
Yeah.
The policy is to ensure that enjoying development doesn't utilize this reserve to attenuate the stormwater created from the
Do you think if, and look, it's a big hypothetical, but if the Three Waters, our Three Waters company, QLDC Three Waters at the moment, was in a position at some point down the track where it needed to, you know, not from new development, but, you know, decided that it wanted to treat through nature-based solutions and so on, is prohibit going to stop it using that? And is that the right thing? Would we not want that anyway?
Yeah, again, the purpose of these reserves is by that recreation asset. And I guess the continuation, you know, for natural solutions to manage stormwater that's already occurring, you know, with native planting and things like that to help with natural stormwater before you cover it. That could still happen. And it's to stop that sort of continuation stormwater based and creation on a recreation reserve in the area that's quite limited.
I would just add there as well, I think the CCO would be looking ahead of such horizons that they would be taking into account, you know, if there was a process they wanted to request, they'd work through the reserve management process anyway, so they would be looking years ahead on that kind of thing.
Yeah, I agree.
So there's probably space.
There's more just raising the thought.
I think it's a question for you. The status of it's a beautiful reserve, but it is broken by a piece of private property. And it has around it no dogs, no bikes. What is the status of that property, and what do you think the future status of that is?
Of what you
The Kawerau Reserve from one end to the other, 1.7 kilometers, is broken up by a slot.
Yeah.
What's that?
Sure.
Yeah, no, not that. Yes, no, if you go down further. What is the status of that? It's the only building that's there.
Oh, yeah, so that's a private property that exists by Riverside Road. So there is a legal road that takes you down to their property,
right,
and that section's private.
But the use of it, no dogs, no bikes?
So on their private property, that's obviously up to them how they manage that.
No, but it's the whole thing is posted, no dogs, no bikes.
So that's inaccurate, and that is open to the public. And it is the road section will be subject to our dog control bylaw, and the reserve section is also covered by that dog control bylaw. So whatever rules apply to that would also apply to those parcels. The cycle access is at this stage limited.
I think there's acknowledgement in here as well that there is some unnecessary fences, gates and signage that needs to be considered.
Can I just clarify, Q, are you talking about that bit in the middle there?
Yeah, here on.
Oh, yes, between.
Yeah, that's to be vested as reserve in due course. So it's currently still part of holding.
Yeah, so I thought you were talking about the property, the section with the house on it. The hatched pink area is currently privately owned by Remarkable Park, which is the developer to the northeast. And it's required to be vested as part of a planning tribunal decision from 1992. So once further development of the Remarkable Parkland happens, that remaining section will be vested.
That's what we're going
with. And about half of that has already been approved for resource consent to be vested. So once title is given for that subdivision, that will come across the council.
So it'll be a continuous result.
Yeah, eventually it will be continuous, and it is already required to be reserved in the future.
So we had a visit to the Abbeyfield last week, some of us, and there was good Julie from the Housing Trust talked about, and has come up too with Mana Tahuna with the potential, and again, with Happiness House, potential use of what is currently QLDC freehold land, and it has been raised concern that, as it's said here, at least in Appendix 2, perhaps elsewhere, possible reclassification as reserve. Is there an intention to do so? Because that would essentially inhibit it used for those other purposes. Where's that at?
Yeah, so the appendix 2 that you mentioned there, the owned section, it's currently QLDC freehold land, which is subject to the Project Manawa reserve land swap. So if that goes ahead and that piece is classified as reserve, then it would be subject to the objectives and policies of this plan, which, as we said, for those purposes, would unlikely be supported. Those activities would unlikely be supported, but that would, again, it's subject to a process that sits outside of this plan, and it's a council decision.
So it's still within our control.
That's part of the Project Manawa land swap. Yes.
So as part of the Manawa land swap, there are still options, even if it is swapped. The land swap doesn't necessarily get in the way, but it would be quite a process to work with. It's not a straightforward.
Sure. Since we're back at questions. All right, about 10-second pause of lack of questions. Just on that matter of land swap, backing up corrected, somebody will correct me if I'm wrong, that the last decision of council was that land swap should proceed.
Yes, that's correct.
That is correct, thank you.
Although it's not to proceed, but to look further into it.
Or to do that exchange. So my question is what's the last
to do it? I have it in front of me. It's the 4th of April 2024, and it does relate to exchanging freehold land from Robertson Street or elsewhere with the reserve land on the Stanley Street site.
Was that to do that or just to investigate it?
So,
what did we decide?
It was to move forward. My understanding was that it would still have to come back as a council decision to finalise.
Yeah.
Directly put that to report back to the council, the scope of works program. Thank you.
Okay. So thanks for
But it's
that option. Keep that as freehold for all these groups, if that's what they have. Move. Seconded was. Thank you, Councillor White. Any discussion?
And a quick note. The chief executive report, I was wondering, as a observation, if you wanted to put a little Michelle's minute in there just to update where things have been at with you in the last 6 weeks or so from here, because it's quite an operational thing. We just do a similar kind of chairs report at the community board where we talk about our engagement and stuff. Not something that you have to do, just floating it if it's helpful to, for us to see some of the issues that are front facing and be a bit more connected with what the workload is like.
I do think that the incoming chief exec will probably have some thoughts and suggestions around how this is put together.
Yeah.
But this has been in this format for a very long time.
Yeah.
So I'd probably leave it to him to put his mark on it, but I think that's the right suggestion.
Okay. Right. Put our hand up.
Okay, So we're voting the down to report. Those in favour, please show. Aye. Aye. Those against, that is carried. Thank you. Right, so we now move into the public excluded.
Thank you.
For the thank you. The item 5 late item that we've added. So we'll just pause the recording. Oh, yeah, okay. I'll move that we move in public exclude. Seconded, Councillor Bartlett. Okay, and we are the grounds for excluding the public are under item 7.2C2 and 7.2.1. And that the updated resolution to exclude the public will be found online. Okay. So I moved, Councillor Bartlett seconded, so